Hi everyone, we are live. So hello, if everyone could take a moment just to say hi, let us know the chat is working, and just maybe let us know where you're from in the world, because we always like to know stuff like that. And we always like to add like a new country to our list, and one always pops up every time we do a live. So welcome to our live Q&A for our masterclass. This is number 2 of 3. And we cannot believe that we have 40,000 of you now taking part in this free training that we're doing for you. And we are so happy to see you in our community sharing your pictures. It's so wonderful to see so many of you discovering, formulating and starting something new. I'm here with the lovely Ken and lovely Barbora. They're from our education team. They're usually super busy, and usually we kind of reserve this kind of thing for our students. So to have their time is absolutely fabulous. So thank you both for joining us for this live. If you'd like to just say hello. Ken?
Hello.
Oh, me first. Okay. I thought we were going with ladies first. There you go. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you. I'm very excited to do this live session today with the lovely Barbora and Lisa Shelley. So please do bring your questions. It is quite difficult for us to find them because once many questions come in, they vanish super quick. But we'll try our best to answer everyone that's submitting questions today. As Lisa said, my name is Ken. I'm the partner manager at Formula Botanica, and it is lovely to have you all joining our free masterclass, and you will learn how to make this.
Barbora?
Okay, hello everybody. This is Barbora. I'm one of the tutors in the education team at Formula Botanica. I joined as a student, I think, in 2016. And then as a graduate, I had the chance to apply for the role of the tutor, and I was accepted. And since then, I'm a happy tutor working for our community, for our students. And I'll try to answer all your questions as well as I can. And excuse me if I often use cooking analogy, because I think that's an example that can relate to people, and that it can help me explain things in an understandable manner, because I suppose some of you might occasionally cook and then understand the analogy. And yeah, that's it. We're here for you, so feel free to ask whatever you wish. And I just dare to wear something botanical. I felt it was an imperative for tonight.
I'm not wearing anything botanical, but as you can see, Ken and I have a kind of botanical garden going on in our bedroom. So we're doing our part that way. If you are following our masterclass, you would have seen in lesson 3, we made an emulsion, and by lesson 5, we've turned that emulsion into a gorgeous yellow botanical cream. So thank you so much for sharing in the community your pictures and your experiences of doing that. I won't say too much about it, because obviously I don't want to ruin it. I know a lot of you aren't up to lesson 5 yet, but keep with us with the masterclass. Keep watching your lessons every single day. And we've seen so many of you, I have to say, being so helpful to each other in the community. So if you are joining us from the live, on this live, wherever you're joining us from, if you see someone ask a question, you know the answer, then feel free to give the answer and help them, because that's what we do at Formula Botanica. It's all about peer-to-peer support, and that is why we are here also. So let's get started. I have taken some questions from a support thread that we put in the Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind, and feel free to ask your questions live with us now. So let's start with the first one. So Barbora, can essential oils be considered botanical extracts? What do we think?
Yeah, they are considered, and they are botanical extract, of course. And actually, I hope this doesn't have any conflict with what Lorraine was saying, but even the basic emulsion that our students have already made is already botanical, because you're using hydrosol, which is a strong herbal extract, and you're using almond oil, right? So these are already ingredients that could be considered botanical, and you're already you can already use this product, which is much better, or far better than many of those that are sold in the shops that are not natural. So I would just say that you already got the botanical cream as a base, and now you're adding the extra. So you're putting it to another level with all these extracts you will be adding. And yes, of course, essential oils, product of steam distillation, are strong botanical extracts. And we need to use them with care and respect the dermal limits, because some of them can't be used with babies and children. Some of them shall not be used for pregnant or breastfeeding women. So we have to be careful.
I think saying respecting our ingredients is a good tagline for us, because we do love them. If we use them in the right way, then we get the best results. I just want to say a quick hello to everyone. We've got people from Texas, India, Jordan, Dubai, which is, I believe, where Ken is currently holding up in his sandstorm. India, Portugal, South Africa. So hello to everyone. Thank you so much. Feel free to leave your questions as we go through and we will try to get to it for you. So next one. Could you clarify how to select the emulsifier that will be suitable for the formulation that we want to do? Barbara, I'm going to go to you again for this. What should we do?
Well, it should be a standalone emulsifier. So it's one that can create an emulsion. And then these can differ in terms of how much oil phase then they can hold up. So there are emulsifiers that can hold like low oil phases, and you can create light lotions with them, while there are others that can hold up to 40%, so a lot of oils, and you get nourishing rich creams with them. So it depends what you're trying to make, and then pick accordingly. And then again, you need to do your research and check if your emulsifier is natural, what it's derived from, if it matches your ethos, and so on.
Fabulous, thank you. So I think, Ken, this is a good one for you. How do you store the emulsifier for making the formulas? Like if you're going to make this, sorry, I'm kind of asking their kind of way of saying it. Like if you're going to make it the skincare the next day, how do you store it?
So first of all, your emulsifier, when you order it, it will come in a certain container or packaging, depending on the amount that you order. Usually they're in some sort of Ziploc bags. So obviously you want to keep them away from moisture, dry them, store them in a dry environment. Temperature-wise, you don't need to chill them or anything like that. So room temperature is fine. They're not too sensitive to heat because, as you can see with the formulation in the lesson, it will only melt if it's 78 degrees and above. So they're not too heat sensitive. So just make sure you keep them in a dry environment, really. I keep them in the Ziploc bags usually that they come in. And then I have, you can't see this, but behind my desk here, I've got stacked sealed plastic containers, big ones, and one of them is dedicated for emulsifiers, and it has all sorts of emulsifiers in their Ziploc bags. So I hope this answers the question. So there's nothing specific that you need to do with it, really. Leave it in the original packaging that it comes in. If it's a bag that you rip open and it's not sealable, I would refill it into something sealable just to keep make sure it stays clean, basically. But that's it. Very easy.
And if you have made the emulsion from lesson 3, it's okay to pop it into the fridge if you are planning on doing some extra stuff and going to lesson 5.
Absolutely,
so,
yes.
We have
or
a question.
If you want to get rid of the emulsion, sorry if I just interrupt, if you don't want to keep it unpreserved, you can add in something like ground coffee grains, like something like an exfoliator. Use it as a body scrub, and then you don't discard it. You just use it up and then make fresh one with the preservative.
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Right, next question. This is from Hafida. Can we formulate our botanical extracts ourselves, please? And she says, thank you. Barbara?
Sorry, I just had noise behind me, so I closed the door. Just shout them.
Barbara has gorgeous, wonderful kids who did pop on the live earlier who are not with us now, but I think it must be there.
So yes, of course, we can formulate our botanical extracts ourselves. But if we want to sell the skincare brand and use these extracts, then it's maybe more advisable to get them from a supplier, because you need to have technical documentation for the extract as well. And it's very important. But that shouldn't stop you from making your own. And I make my own. And I just can show you a few that I have here. And that's hydrosol from basil that I made. It looks like plain water, so you can't really see. You can't know without having a label on it. And I also have a glycerite, but this one is from mallow. And my friend just gave me a few more flowers of mallow, and they look like this. They're purple. They're beautiful.
Wow.
And this is the glycerite, which is also purple. It doesn't really change the color of the emulsion, but it's actually sweet tasting because glycerin is sweet. So my kids could technically take this as medicine because it helps when they cough. And so that's why I make it, because I combine herbalism and ingestion of these extracts, and I also use some in my products. So this is mallow, yeah. And then I dry calendula, so I have a lot of it, because the more I pick the flowers, the more they regrow again. So I just can't get rid of the calendula flowers. I have another tray of flowers drying here.
It's like a pizza.
and I put them in oil, so I make macerated oil. And this year I'm considering using or making also calendula glyceride. No, calendula hydrosol, because I heard it exists too. You can actually steam distill anything you wish. So yes, you can do them for your personal use and make salves, for example, or creams. But if you want to sell the products, then it can be an issue because you need the documentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just
Also,
sorry, Kane, go on.
Also, what Barbara just said with she made her own glyceride. I also, because I couldn't find papaya glyceride in short notice, so I'm making my own. This is papaya, and this is papaya in glycerin. It will soon be ready, so I can make my formulation botanical. But you could replace it as well with something else. Like if you can't find the papaya glyceride that we're using, there is many other glycerides in the market. So for example, what I do have in my stack of ingredients here that you can see, I do have cucumber glyceride, for example. So you could use that instead, or there's many others that you could use, you know. So that's the nice thing about formulation, and probably when Barbara brings in her kitchen cooking analogy later, you can replace things here and there and just see what happens if you use something else instead. Will it feel different? Will it smell different? Will it have a different function? So it's super exciting. That's the nice thing about formulating rather than just, you know, following recipe.
A lot of people seem to have questions like that. We have another question from Lai. Sorry if I get any pronunciations of names wrong. Can I replace mango glycerin by another plant one? And is it possible to use cosgard instead of geogard?
Yeah,
Anyone?
but we don't want to jump because the replacements will be covered in a later lesson.
That's
but yes, true. You can do some replacements, obviously. Yeah.
Okay,
So
fabulous. If I look to my right, it's because I've got questions here and I've got questions here. So I'm still with you guys. Sorry, just kind of explaining my head movement here. Question from Hannah. Would we be able to see this live stream after? So yes, I probably should have said that at the beginning. If you're kind of joining us at any time, you can always go back and start from the beginning. And also when we've finished, feel free to leave any question you might have for us in the comments, and we'll try and get back to it later. So thank you for that question, Hannah. Anita Johnson says, can I use rose hydrosol instead of neroli? Ken, what do we think?
Absolutely. It will completely change the scent of your lotion. In case you have tried that already, you will have noticed that. But rose is also a beautiful, gorgeous scent. It has beautiful benefits of rose hydrosol as well. So it's absolutely possible to use that. And like Barbara mentioned, we will cover in lesson 8 substitutions. So what do you do if you can't find this? What can you use instead? Those sort of things. But yes, you can. So if you do have rose hydrosol at home, you couldn't get hold of the neroli, then go ahead and keep trying. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ken. So next question. I have a question about the emulsifier. Can I mix it myself because I don't have the vegetal where I am? Barbara?
Well, for a beginner, I wouldn't recommend it because you might then end up with something unstable possibly, and that can discourage you from further experiments, or get hold of something, but then you need to combine, and we can't guarantee the result. But obviously feel free to experiment with. I just can't guarantee you will get a result you'll be happy with, but it's not undoable or non-doable, because even I, in my practice and in my experimenting, I do combine emulsifiers, but one of them should be a standalone emulsifier, which means it is able to hold the water phase and oil phase together. Yeah,
I think that's a good point. You know, that's very good advice. But also, if people just try things, it just gives them a little bit more knowledge of what it is like to formulate and what kind of results they can achieve when they just go out there and try and do things. But yes, very good advice.
yeah.
As long as you write everything down.
Yes.
So if you do experiment, make sure you do write it down in your lab notebook, because if you hit the sweet spot and it turns into a lovely lotion, you want to make sure that you can replicate that later on. Or if it doesn't hit the sweet spot, you also want to record that you can get back to it at a later stage to, you know, rewind and kind of look at, oh, I've tried it before and it didn't work. So always make sure you write things down.
That's so true.
So there's another substitution. People are very into substitution these days. I'm not sure if we've had this one. Instead of neroli hydroxyl, can you use distilled rose water?
So they mean hydrosol.
Hydrosol, sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. A lot of these answers are just going to be yes.
Answer is yes, absolutely. So
yeah, go for it.
Like we mentioned before, and we covered that more in lesson 8, what to keep in mind when you replace things. But short answer, if I can't see the name of who submitted this question, but if you want to go ahead and obviously trial the emulsion that we're making, and you only have the rose water, go ahead and try it and see what happens, but you can.
Okay, fabulous. Next question, I'm just going to look to my right. This person, Malak, asks, how can we know what percentage of emulsifier can be used in the lotion that we're making? Barbara?
So your supplier should be able to tell you, and when you're buying this, it should be indicated on the website or where you're sourcing it from. So there's usually a dosage. Usually it's like 3 to 6%. You can move within the range, and it can affect the final texture. So it takes some trial and error to try. And then all the other ingredients you will be adding, whether it is shea butter or gum or something extra, that all can then have an impact on the final texture and viscosity and so on.
Great, thank you. So Ken,
yeah,
that's part of it. Yeah.
Go back to the previous lesson that just like you research your botanical ingredients, you research your emulsifier.
Ken, I can see the movement behind you. I think Ken has a dog that's ready to go for a walk. I think he just opened the door. Right, Ken, question for you.
Yeah.
Can I add powdered herbs?
Yes, so it depends what powdered herb it is that you have. And keep in mind that there probably, if you add too much of it, it will completely change the texture and the feel of your product. Keep in mind that some powdered herbs may be soluble in water. Some of them may not be as good to solubilize in water. Others may need to be solubilized in oil. Some of them may be better to infuse. So Barbara mentioned that she infuses her calendula flowers in oils, which basically means you would let the oil with those flowers sit for a certain amount of time, and then you would filter the flowers out. So you can infuse the herbs as well. So there's different methods of how you could do that, how you could work with powdered herbs. Just keep in mind, if you're thinking of physically adding the physical powder into the cream, that could completely change the texture and skin feel as well. It depends how fine the powder is. If it's not fine enough, it could feel grainy. Give it a try and see what happens, like experiment. And that's what the beautiful thing about formulating, like you do at home when you cook different dishes, you just experiment. What happens if I add a little bit of that? And again, write it down so you can, track back and say, this was actually a really good idea. Let me try this again. Or you go back to saying, this didn't work, so let me not do this again next time. So it depends what powder it is and how you want to use it. Short answer is yes, you can. Just be mindful in how you add it in, at what point, and how much of it.
Okay, fantastic. Hello to everyone. We're still getting people telling us where they're from. People from London, Trinidad, Tobago, Norway. So thank you for joining us. I can see
from everywhere.
Yeah, your comments are streaming past. Lots of people asking about substitution. Sorry, we will cover this later, but I'm going to bring this one up because this person's doubled it. Oh, this person's called Transformational. It's a good, easy first name. Can I use Polawax or glyceryl stearate and PEG 100 instead of Vegetal? I can't find Vegetal in South Africa. Barbara,
well,
what do you
if
think?
You can't get it, then this will work because it is a standalone emulsifier, but it's not considered 100% natural and sustainable and organic, because polar wax, I think that contains a polysorbate, and these PEG derivatives are I think these are ethoxylated ingredients, so they're not acceptable in organic skincare, but they do work. They are often used in the mainstream, not so natural cosmetics.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And maybe just to add to this question, so if you can't find Vegetal, keep in mind, and we do cover it in the lesson as well, keep in mind that Vegetal is one of the trade names. So you may find it in South Africa, but not under the name Vegetal. It might be called Montanov, or you may find it under a different name. So that's why it's always good to use the INCI name, which we explain in our lessons as well in the masterclass. So maybe go back to that, get the INCI name of this specific emulsifier, which is also called Vegetal, and see if you can maybe find this emulsifier under its INCI name in your country, because I'm quite sure it's quite easy to find. And I think South Africa, it should be available. I'm pretty sure it is.
Fabulous. So Ken, question for you. How do I successfully adjust the pH without affecting the product's color? From Andrea. Is this possible?
Yes, so it depends, because if you work with certain plant extracts that are colored, so for example, Barbara's lovely glyceride that looked purple, what can happen is that depending on the pH of your product, that color changes, and especially over time, that color can change if the pH shifts. Can you find it again, Barbara?
I want to show you something. No, I'll just show it with the mallow, because I have some butterfly pea as well, and I prepared a thermos flask with some warm water. This is the mallow, so I'll just do this experiment. I don't know if it does something. We'll see over time. But last time I did it with really warm water, it turned the color to bluish, pinkish.
Yeah.
If I managed to open the bag with the butterfly pea, I would show you what it does. So keep on talking. I'll just show you.
I was wondering what was going to happen there. Like you never know.
You may have seen this fancy cocktail. I've seen it a lot on Instagram stories based from people in London. That comes actually, it's with butterfly pea. It's a perfect example. It has butterfly pea. It's a purple cocktail, and then the waiter pours lime juice in, and it turns it into a different color, and that is because the pH shifts. And the same can happen with your whatever cosmetic product it is that you make. If the pH shifts and you use a plant color in it, that could impact the color or a color change. So you should make sure that the pH stays stable, and with adjusting the pH, let's see, Barbara.
It's like bluish. It is slightly bluish.
Yeah, we can see.
The butterfly pea made the effect, but the water is no longer so warm, so that's the issue. If it was warmer, it would be more stronger color.
Yeah.
But anyway, it does change the color. But with pH, I think this changes as well.
Yeah, absolutely, it would. Yeah, and so here's the thing. So with the formulation we're doing right now in the free masterclass, you shouldn't really experience much of a color shift or color change because we didn't use any. The plant extracts are colored. It's difficult to explain now. The plant extracts we use are colored. So obviously, the sea buckthorn you could see was very orange, but the pH wouldn't really affect its color. Whereas if you would use the butterfly pea, it would. I'm not sure if that makes any sense right now.
Yeah, we can conclude it with the way that the blue natural colorants are very unstable, while the orange one, like carotenoids, are much more stable. Yeah. And I picked some fresh sea buckthorn in the garden. Ooh. So the berries are very sour if you want to eat them, but you can make juice, or we put this all in the freezer, and then we just bang the whole branch and get the berries out, because otherwise it's difficult to pick them, and they have very sharp thorns, so you could hurt yourself. So we just eat a few every day to get vitamin C.
Yeah, amazing. I love Barbara's the thing she has in there.
I was just going to say, if you've seen Barbara in any of the lives, you just turn the camera and there's a whole host of strange ingredients like just behind her. I'm looking at. So next question. So hi there, I'm in London, she actually says. I also have a question regarding the best place to buy essential oils and hydrosol. Also, how can you adjust this face cream to a hand cream? Oh, interesting. Barbara.
So the best place to find a good supplier, that needs some detective work, as Lorraine said, because you need to test a few suppliers and compare and see. And when it comes to the different parts of the body, you can use this face cream for the hands as well. But then you may consider if you want a thicker texture, viscosity for your hands, for example, and then the dispensing method, maybe you would find it more practical to put it in a pump bottle or something like this. But this would be a safe formula for the hands as well.
And also to mention, we do recommend suppliers in the workbook that we have with this masterclass. So you should all have downloaded your workbook, because we do have suppliers in there that we recommend for all different countries in the world. So we have tried to help you there. See, Ken's been filling out his workbook.
And these are just some basic ones, but for our students, we do offer a much bigger supplier list. So
exactly. So next question, Ken. Once made, should the emulsion be stored in glass or plastic, or a plastic jar, clear or amber in color?
Okay, well, that depends. So first of all, it depends what you can get your hands on. It also depends a little bit on your ethos. So we talked about in lesson 1 about what is, your definition of natural, what's your formulation philosophy. And with that, I think also goes, what is your philosophy as such? Like, do you want to promote sustainable or recyclable packaging? And if yes, like, what does that look like? So would plastic be an ethical choice for you to use to store your products in, or would it be maybe a glass container that you could, possibly recycle if it is that you make the products for yourself or your friends? So first of all, it depends a little bit on that. There is products where you need to consider the actual materials. So there are certain products that should not be used. So plastic should not be used at all. It has to be in glass. And for example, the amber jar is very popular because it also protects from sunlight. So it has a lot to do with the product that you're making right now. Is for personal use, right? So you do it, you put it in some sort of jar, you put it in your bathroom, you maybe give it to your friend and you use it. It's nothing, this product right now is nothing that you will then ship all across the world and sell. If that is something you want to do with it because you want to sell your cosmetics, then obviously there is lots of things to consider, such as, will the product be exposed to UV light, and then is my packaging appropriate for it? Does it meet, the government's regulations, those sort of things? That's nothing to worry about right now. But if you're interested in that, we do teach that in our courses later on. So that's something to consider for then. So don't make things complicated. For now, whatever your local store has that you can use as a jar will do. I do prefer personally glass jars because I recycle them, I reuse them. So once this is finished, this lovely cream, I will wash it with hot soapy water. I will use the alcohol spray that we teach as well, how to disinfect your work area. I will use that in there and then refill it for my own use.
And Ken's also mentioned a couple of other things that you have to use when you're formulating. We do have suggestions on our Amazon pages. We have 2. We have an American Amazon page and a European one. So if people are helping out in the comments, the team, if you could add those links in, that would be really great for everybody, and that'd be really helpful. Thank you. Okay, Barbara, how do I know which extract is better? There's so many. How do we know what's the best one?
Well, it will take some research, first of all, because even herbalists, when they pick which herb to use, even for making tea to ingest, they need to think what they're going to treat or what it's supposed to do. So, for example, people suffering from acne might benefit from some antibacterial ingredients such as tea tree oil, or soothing it with oats or ingredients like this. And then the key factor is, as Lorraine mentioned in the masterclass, is the solubility of the herb if you are creating the extract yourself, because some will just not work in that menstruum, in that solvent, just like caffeine. The same would be with curcuma. If I go to the kitchen now, curcuma needs some oil to dissolve. On the other hand, you wouldn't really get the bioavailability if you put it in water. And the same is with carrots. Carrots contain beta-carotene, the orange substance, and that is oil soluble. So if you grate carrots to eat them, it's ideal if you add a drop of oil so that the vitamin can dissolve and be absorbed. And the same happens when the grater, if it's plastic or whatever material, it can remain orange, and you can't get rid of the orange color unless you put a drop of oil on the grater. So this is what I got asked sometime before when I was at a fair, and they were, how do I get rid of this carrot stains? And I said, well, people were guessing like vinegar or soapy water. No, a drop of oil will work. And the same happened in the kindergarten with my kids when the children came to sorry if I go off the tangent, but came to the kindergarten on a bicycle and they got dirty, and it was all these oily stains. And because oil dissolves they couldn't get rid of the black dirty stains, and I took a bit of a lip balm and just and the stain just disappeared in a second. So you need to understand the solubility concept and understand which ingredient needs which solvent. And just like with glycerin is a good solvent, but only for certain things. It wouldn't work for resins like frankincense, and it wouldn't work for oily herbs. So you need to understand this concept and research further on the herb and how to extract it, because you would get a different plant constituents from calendula, for example, in water, from the infusion, and calendula in the oil.
Yeah.
So it's comparing apples and pears. They're different things, and you can't say this is better, this is worse, because it depends what you're making and what it's for.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, there is a question here from YouTube from EMRs. I'm not sure if you can see, pull this up. And sorry, I just want to bring this question up before it vanishes on my screen and I can't find it again. So
you can read it out.
Yeah, so what you've asked is, oops, it's going already. If you start off with a solid, so for example, a butter weighing 10 grams, that when melted becomes 5 milliliters, which when mixed with liquids, it changes its percentage, becoming only 5%, not 10%. How do you address this? So I think you're thinking too much, because so keep it very simple. So basically, what you do is what we do is we go by weight. So we don't measure drops, we don't measure milliliters, we measure the weight of that particular raw ingredient. So if it is 10, if your formulation is 100 grams, which is the easiest with percentage wise as well, because then that 100% is 100 grams, it's very easy to convert that. And let's say you've got 10% mango butter in there in your formulation, then it's 10 grams of mango butter. It doesn't matter once it's melted how many milliliters it is, as long as you considered the grams percentage conversion, if my explanation makes sense. So don't overthink it. It's very simple. You go by grams, and the reason why we do that is because it's very easy then to change the amount you want to make, or then later on even manufacture. So then it's very easy to scale up or down. Do you want to make a pot of 50 grams of cream, or do you want to make a batch of 500 grams of cream because you're ready to give out Christmas presents to everyone? Or are you manufacturing 500 kilos of this cream because you are selling it in your local store? So that's why we go with percentage and grams. I hope that explanation helped.
It did.
Good. There's figures and numbers involved. Always think it gets super complicated.
We do cover, that's why, to mention, Ken, just to follow on from your answer, that's why we're doing the masterclass in the steps that we're doing. We've seen a lot of questions of people trying to get ahead, but as Ken has just explained, we do kind of have to put it up into sections just so we can show you, how complicated it is, but also when you're taught correctly, how achievable it actually is. You just need to have the right information. Okay, question. Ken, let's see if this one could be for you. From AU, how can we clarify if an active is natural, like ceramide and retinol? Are they considered natural in any form?
Okay, so it goes back to lesson 1. First of all, where you decide your philosophy and your different shades of natural. So in your products, what kind of natural grade do you want to use? So for example, do you accept naturally derived products in your cosmetic brand, in your cosmetic products, and would you then consider it as natural? Some people will say yes, and some people say no, a naturally derived ingredient for me is not natural anymore. So this is your first step, I think, where you have to differentiate that. Then there is products that ingredients that are very much available from nature itself, but if you buy them from cosmetic suppliers, most likely they will be naturally derived, and that is just because they're used in such huge amounts all over the world, not only for cosmetics, also for the food industry. So for example, I believe citric acid is a good example, and most where's my citric acid?
Ken's little cupboard of treats.
Yes. So citric acid is something that could be, or originally is natural, right? But believe you me, most citric acid that you will buy and use is actually naturally derived and made in a lab, because it would be such a hassle to create all the citric acid that is used all over the world naturally. So there is where you need to draw the line. naturally derived? Is it okay for you or not? So look back to your philosophy, your different shades of natural we cover in lesson 1, and make your rule there. Then it goes back to your research of the ingredients. So every supplier should be able to give you certain, this is when you want to do this professionally, not only for yourself, you actually want to sell the ingredients. There's certain paperwork that you can demand, and you should demand as well. And we teach all of this in our courses. And that will then tell you where this ingredient actually comes from. Is it naturally derived? Is it natural? Where is it originated from? What's in it? Those sort of things. And that can help you as well. And then there will be always options where you have a natural version of it and you will have a lab version of it. And it depends on what is the route you want to go. Maybe you want to go natural, but maybe the lab version may be more sustainable in some aspects of it. So it really depends on your pitch and your philosophy there. And for example, I'm not that familiar with ceramides, Barbora. Maybe I haven't really formulated with it a lot. But for example, retinol is something I don't use. I use a natural, well, they say it's a natural version of retinol, which is bakuchiol from the bapchi plant. And that is something I use in formulations. I had friends that used the product, had great benefits from it. I use it myself. I'm a big fan of it. So I don't touch retinols. I use the natural alternative to it. So there may be things that nature can replace with maybe not the exact same ingredient, but something that scientifically is proven as well to bring similar or the same, if not more, benefits as well. That would be my response to it, and I'm aware that this probably was a whole paragraph. So sorry about that.
No, it's very...
to add something to that.
That's actually a fantastic answer, Ken. Thank you very much for that. I've just had Wayne buzz me actually to my right on my other screen. I can't find this comment, but apparently this person has asked it quite a lot, so let's get to it. Okay. Somebody asks, Formulate Botanica, how do you thicken the cream? Does less water equals thicker cream?
Oh, that's a very good question.
The cream, the texture can be thickened with various things. It can be the water-oil ratio, an amount of emulsifier. You can add some wax. You can add some gum. You can add some butter, and all these can affect the texture. But then you don't want the greasy product because the oils obviously make it slightly greasy. But in an emulsion, it's much better than in a butter because butters are always more greasy. So yeah, you can add some butter, for example, shea butter, 5 grams, but then you reduce water.
And I just want to show this comment from Asha, who says, I used emulsifying wax. It was what I had instead of vegetal, and it worked out amazingly. So it just goes to show people out there practicing with what they have in the cupboard. So well done.
Yeah. So they work, although they're not quite natural, but they do work, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also just to add from what Barbora said just now in terms of the texture of your product, also sometimes it's good just to wait 1-2 days until you have the final texture of your cream or emulsion, depending on what you use, obviously, as well. And I saw a comment earlier where someone said, oh, I'm on my 2nd trial and I find it still very liquid. So I remember when I made this, it was also quite liquid in the beginning, but as the cream cools, because you use the cold water bath, it thickens. And then actually it was like a really creamy, thick, looking like a custard substance. Whereas now you can see, I can turn it upside down. It's really a nice, thick kind of cream. It doesn't, it's not runny anymore at all. So it does change as well once it completely sets. So keep that in mind too.
Thanks, Ken. Next,
would have been funny if it would have dropped, no?
I was thinking that the meringue test. So we have a question from Afi. What is the difference between emulsifying wax and cetyl alcohol?
Well, emulsifying wax is probably cetyl or cetyl alcohol and polysorbate. So it's not quite natural. It contains something that wouldn't be acceptable in organic skincare, but it's a standalone emulsifier. So you would get an emulsion with it. While cetyl alcohol is just a co-emulsifier, which could be used in natural skincare, but on its own, it wouldn't hold an emulsion stable. So it might be one part of the other.
Next, we kind of touched on this earlier, but this person is quite keen. They put it a few times. Alpona asks, what percentage of essential oil is safe to use on the skin as a general rule of thumb? Is there a general rule of thumb? Ken?
It really depends on the essential oil, and it also depends what kind of product you're making. So we did mention essential oil safety a few times in the lessons, and something called dermal limits. And it's something that we do teach in our courses. There is a whole guide on it where it lists different essential oils and how much you're allowed to use in a leave-on product or in a rinse-off product. So there's very, very many variants to it. So essential oils are composed of different chemical compounds, obviously. Some of them are considered more sensitizing, some of them are considered less sensitizing, some of them are considered phototoxic, as in they may react with the sun. So there's different chemical compounds with it. So depending on which essential oil you use, that makeup will be completely different, and therefore the amount you can use of that essential oil will also vary in the product that you use. And I know this sounds very complicated, but the good thing is with our courses, you've got lots of material. You can just look it up in one go. Rule of thumb is actually in cosmetics that most regulations will refer to something called IFRA. And IFRA is an organization that kind of establishes rules with regards to essential oils in cosmetics on a leave-on product, a rinse-off product. For example, how much of this essential oil is allowed in this product for it to be considered safe, those sort of things. And most, most cosmetic regulations all over the world will follow the IFRA guidelines with that. So I don't want to make it too complicated. It is something that you will learn in our courses if you do decide to take this further. But there is things to consider when it comes to essential oils, and you want to sell your products especially because they need to be ready for market, obviously, and they need to be considered safe and tested, those sort of things. But if you stick to our formulation that we have given you in the free masterclass, you will be good to go with that essential oil and that percentage as well.
Fabulous. Thank you, Kim. Question for you, Barbara. Which emulsifier doesn't require heat for mixing oil and water?
So I know of top of my head, about two of them. One is called Sapogel Q, and one is Sucragel. But Sucragel comes in more forms. There are more variants of Sucragel, AOF and Bio and blah, blah, blah. So these are emulsifiers that have a different texture. You wouldn't see white pellets, but you would see viscous texture that needs then blending with oil and water. And these are cold process emulsifiers. But then it requires a lot of stirring. So you need to stir. And if you don't have proper equipment, you need the elbow grease and a lot of muscles because you need to stir that for a very long time. But it works, So Sucragel and Sapogel.
Thank you. All very similar. Okay, question from the lovely Tiffany. Is there criteria for deciding if we add an ingredient from a powdered form as a macerate or as an infusion? Ken?
Yeah, so again, it comes back to solubility of the chemical compounds in your plant that you want to benefit from. So like we mentioned earlier, and as you may know with vitamins as well, for example, there are certain compounds that are water soluble and certain compounds that are oil soluble. So it depends what you're working with. So you need to then, let's say you want to work with, and in our masterclass, actually, Lorraine perfectly uses the sample of caffeine. I'm not going to reuse that because please watch the lesson if you haven't. But this is a perfect example. So there is plants that you could use for both. You could use it in a water-based infusion, which will give you certain benefits because it will obviously pull certain chemicals and benefits from that plant. But that same plant may also be very good macerated in an oil because it will pull different benefits because they're oil soluble, if that makes sense. So, and very much with, I mentioned earlier, my natural retinol alternative is bakuchiol, or from the bachi plant. And that, for example, I have a water-based extract here, and I've got an oil-based extract here, and I actually use both because both of them will dissolve or will carry different compounds of that plant, if that makes sense. So it depends what you want to achieve, what plant you're working with, and which benefits you want to have of that plant. So it requires some research or thought of which benefits do you want, and do you want to kind of advertise in your product at the end? What do you want it to carry and have and do?
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. I just want to thank everyone for their questions. We've had so many coming in, and it's been really easy. They're just good question after good question. I can tell a lot of these questions are people that have watched up to lesson 5. So congratulations to all of those people. Please let me know if you have watched all 5 lessons. If you haven't started yet and you're just joining us, they're only 10 minutes each. So it's so easy. And I think it's 9 lessons overall. So we've designed it to be extremely doable for everybody. So thank you again for everybody for signing up. If people helping out in the comments can add the Masterclass series link, just in case people might need it, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If I can just add to this question,
yeah,
with emulsions, it's not so complicated because the emulsion at the end will still absorb both oil soluble and water soluble extracts. But if you're only making oil serum or just a facial mist, which is basically water, then you can't mix it with the other solubility ingredients unless you have a solubilizer or something to disperse this, because otherwise you wouldn't get a stable product. You would have a biphase product. So if you're making an oil serum, you can't get any B vitamin extract or something that would be water soluble. And if you're making a facial mist, which is hydrosol mixed with some extra actives like hyaluronic acid or panthenol, you wouldn't be adding oils unless you want to solubilize them, which is something else that we teach in our courses. So emulsion is quite easy in terms of added extracts because you can add anything. And one more word for the powdered extracts. If you want to add an extract afterwards, it might not be the luckiest choice unless this is an exfoliating particle, because the powdered herbs in the cream can actually attract the microorganisms because it's good food for them. So even though you preserve your product, this is a potential threat. So it is okay, but then it would probably be a mask or something that you would rinse off, because you would then put it on your skin and it would stay there. The cream may absorb, but the powder will stay there unless it solubilizes or how do you say, it would dilute there, but I don't think the powder would just simply dilute. Not in the cream.
Can I just say there's lots of questions I can see in the thread about preservatives, and that we will cover in a whole separate lesson. So there will be a whole lesson on preservation, and we did mention already there will be a whole separate lesson on substitution. So what do I do if I can't find this, or can I use this instead? So I can see lots of questions coming in around that. So there will be a specific lesson in the masterclass for you that covers exactly that.
This is really blue now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Do you have lime next to you? Add some lime or lemon.
No, sadly, no.
Just pulling this up. Legelen, I've made that sound very French. Love all the information you are sharing. Glad I signed up for the masterclass. Thank you so much. We love to see your feedback. Okay, question for both of you. Well, all 3 of us really, but mainly you 2. Great to see you. Hello from Ireland. Can you tell more about weighing in grams when making the formula? It looks a bit tricky. Any tips? Barbara?
I don't know what's so complicated. Well, I would just use the scale weighing in grams.
You're an expert, Barbara.
You need some good distinction on the weight, because the scales have a capacity, like what is the maximum weight you can weigh, and then the precision of the scale, so up to which tiniest amount you can measure, whether it's 0.01 or it's just 0.1. So just weigh the grams, weigh the measures, the weight measurements, not the liquid ones, and that's all. Well, about precision might be difficult if you're weighing small amounts, like with essential oils, and you really need 0.1. That might be difficult because, shaking hands or something, you might overweigh. Use or spill more than you need. So that can be complicated. And in that case, I would recommend using a pipette.
Thank you very much. So Florence needs a little bit of help. I'm not sure if we can help her, but we'll try. I measured everything as instructed, but my cream was very wet. What could be the cause? Ken, any ideas?
So when you say wet, I'm not really sure what you mean. Do you mean it was very thin and watery? Or do you mean that once you've mixed the cream, after a while it looked like
not homogeneous, maybe.
Yeah, exactly, like wet on top, because that could mean that you didn't form the emulsion properly, and there could be various reasons. Most common reason I would say is that you didn't heat the oil phase and the water phase to the same temperature. So if your temperature wasn't the same or not correct, so let's say your emulsifier and oil was at 75 degrees, but your hydrosol, your water phase, was at 60, and then you mixed it and you blend it together with your whisk or with your homogenizer, whatever it is that you used. It may look great, but then after some time you let it to sit, it might separate again, and that might be the cause. So it wasn't homogenized properly. Maybe you didn't stir it long enough, or maybe you overstirred. So there's different reasons why this could happen. If it's too runny, too watery, maybe it is the ratio of emulsifier, oil, and water phase that wasn't correct, or maybe it wasn't cooled yet, because my cream, like I said earlier, while it was warm, it was very runny, but once it cooled down, it thickened into like a custard kind of like consistency, and then the next day, drop proof. I secretly wanted to drop so I can use it all over.
It's called the Pavlova test. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I don't know that.
With a cake.
When you make pavlova, you're supposed to take the bowl and put it above your head, and that's when you know. That's when you know to drop. So maybe we could do that in a later masterclass, maybe. Okay. Kristen says, is it necessary to rehydrate or add water to dried herbs, botanicals, if making your own glycerate? I actually have a machine that uses low heat to make glycerin infusions. What do we think, Barbara?
It depends on the particular herb, but it might be a good idea to rehydrate the herbs, because the glycerin on its own is not the best solvent. So sometimes it needs water. And even with store-bought extracts that I got, usually it contained glycerin, aqua, and then the extract of the herb. So they do add, with these store-bought extracts that are officially sold for cosmetic use, they do use some water.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just say something? Because we're getting lots of questions, and obviously that we're answering, and some of them are very precise. So if you are sitting there and you're watching this live stream or the recording and you think, I've got no idea what they're talking about and what those people are asking, don't worry. Follow the masterclass. So if in case you're that person, because I was there just a few months ago, in case you're that person, follow the masterclass, follow the workbook, and everything else will come. Because based from the questions, I can tell that there is lots of people that have formulated before, or that know a little bit about ingredients, or probably have done DIY products before, maybe coming from soap making, etc. So if you're an absolute beginner and you're sitting there and you think some of these things I never heard of, it sounds very complicated, please don't worry, it will come in time. It's a new skill, it's a new craft that you're learning, like cooking. I'm very sure the first time you made an omelette, it didn't turn out great. So it's things that you learn, right? In the beginning, you really follow the recipe step by step. And then as you gain experience, you start to craft your own version of it. So in the beginning, you follow the omelette recipe as you see it on YouTube or online. And then at the end, you don't even look at the recipe anymore. You just crack the eggs open, you add things here and there, you throw it in the pan, and you've got the fluffiest, nicest breakfast dish. So if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know what they're talking about, it sounds very complicated, please don't worry. Just follow what we teach you in the master class. Ask your questions, and it will come. The knowledge will come over time the more you expose it. And I think that's the great thing that you can see as well from the community. If you do choose to enroll with us at some point, it's really great, because we have our online classrooms where people ask questions, and then more experienced students will answer. So don't feel lost. Just try and stick with what we have in the master class.
I think that's a really good point, Ken, and that's why I said in the beginning, we're so proud to see everyone joining this master class, because we have people who have experience, people who have, trying to make their own brands, and we have people who have never picked up, a spatula before. They just don't know what they're doing. So we're proud of all of you for starting this master class. Thank you so much for joining us. And Ken is very right there. You will understand, because we will teach you exactly what to do. We have a simpler question here, even though it's a good one. Lesion, I'm going to say. What is the difference between wax and butter? Do both of them change the texture and make it thicker? I'm assuming that's what that question is. Ken?
Well, they are different, and they both do change the texture of the emulsion or of the product, so they would make it thicker. But butter on its own could be absorbed by the skin, but you wouldn't use plain wax on your skin because it just wouldn't get there. So butter can absorb in the skin if you apply it, while wax would create an occlusive layer, so-called occlusive layer, which means it protects moisture, it protects water in your skin from evaporating, but it doesn't really offer any nourishment. While butters do offer nourishment, they're emollient, so they can soften the skin, and they can be used even on their own, plain on the skin. So yeah, you can add both to get a thicker cream.
Fabulous, thank you. So next question, Iman says, what is the difference between CO2 extract and EO? Ken?
So the difference is the manufacturing process of this plant extract. So essential oil is created a certain way, and CO2 extract is done a certain way. And CO2 extract is something, how should I explain this simple? It's done very gently, so that a lot of the plant properties are actually being then captured in that oil, whereas essential oils also have loads of benefits, but they are usually made through distillation. Yeah, distillation, exactly. So it's a different process on how it's made. And because of that, you will have different benefits of the extracts, let's put it that way. And obviously essential oils, I would say, so both have benefits, both have different benefits. Both of them can be very powerful plant extracts. From my experience, the CO2 extracts I worked with are not as fragrant as essential oils. So I would, this is me personally, if I use essential oils in my skincare formulation, I look a lot at essential oils in terms of what fragrance do they deliver to my product. So of course there is properties that essential oils have, but I mainly look at it from a fragrance perspective. Whereas, and this is me personally, if I work with CO2 extracts, I look at more what benefits do they deliver to the product. But this is me, the way I work with my formulations, and I'm a beginner formulator, more or less. Barbora might do it very differently.
No, well, they are both oil-soluble extracts made with different methods, and they then, in the final result, they contain different constituents, some of them or different amounts of them. And then you need to keep in mind that some herbs or plants are not extracted through steam distillation, and some maybe wouldn't be made as a CO2. So for example, chili peppers wouldn't be distilled, but you can get a CO2 extract of chili, and that will make a very warming balm, for example, for your joints. And then if I think of any other, calendula also can't be made into essential oil, but you can get a CO2 extract of calendula. So sometimes you can't get both, just one. With rosehip, for example, rosehips can be processed to get CO2 extract. You can get carrier oil, but you wouldn't get an essential oil from rosehips again. Yeah. So some plants just can't be available in the essential oil form.
Fabulous, thank you. Another question, we did touch on it earlier. I know, Ken, you mentioned this, but for people who don't know what this is, what does inky mean? We mention it, what is it?
Well, yeah, so we do cover it in lesson, was it 5 today or was it 4 yesterday?
Oh, 1 or 2, I think.
Can't remember.
Oh, already.
It was at the beginning, maybe 2 or 3.
There you go. So let's go back to the example of our emulsifier. So we call it, where I live, when I want to look for this emulsifier that we're using in a masterclass, we call it vegetal. But you may find that this is the trade name. So this is what my supplier stocks it under. Another supplier may stock it under Montanov 68, I believe it is. And there may be different trade names for the same product all around the world. The inky name is kind of the official name that the cosmetic industry uses to identify this specific product and ingredient. And this is the name that you will find, or you should be finding, on your ingredient list of your product. So if you are in the bathroom next time, pick up your cosmetic product, whatever stands in the shelf, your cream, your shower gel, your body lotion, whatever it is, and flip the label around and get your glasses out and have a look at the ingredient list. And most likely you will see the inky names listed in there. And these are the descriptions of how to identify the actual ingredients. And like Barbara mentioned earlier, with, for example, the glyceride that she buys from a supplier, she can tell based on the inky name of this glyceride that she buys. So it may say, I don't know, calendula glyceride, let's say, as an example. But when she looks at the inky name of it, it may say glycerin,
aqua,
aqua, and the scientific name is calendula flower, which tells you that this actually calendula glyceride is not only 2 ingredients of calendula flower and glycerin, it also contains water.
I think the question was related to what's the abbreviation specifically.
Oh,
that's
okay.
international.
That's okay. We like a bit of detail, Ken. That's fine.
So that's the international nomenclature of cosmetic ingredients.
Yes. Thank you, Barbara. And also Ken. Thank you. This is our last question. It's actually a good lead on to what we're going to be covering. So guys, what can I use as a preservative?
Yeah, we will cover this in later lessons and with the substitutions that are possible.
Yeah, we can't cover this topic at the moment because there's too much to cover. But tomorrow we do start going into preservatives and how to make the formulation that you have created safe, so you can actually give it to friends and family, which is fantastic. And also, I'd like to say I've seen quite a few people mentioning our courses, and obviously Ken has mentioned them as well. We do have 14,000 students, I think it is, all over the world, and our organic entrepreneur or skincare entrepreneur program, I always get the word wrong, actually opens on, I think it's the 29th of September. So if people helping out in the comments could leave a link to that below so people can take a look at it, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us for this live. We would love so many of you on this live to join us as students so we continue to teach you and take this dream that you've just started and possibly make it into something fantastic, like maybe a brand of your very own. We also have a graduates page, which I think has about 200 graduate brands on it, that students that have come from studying with us and then created, life-changing decisions and created their own brands. So please check out our graduate page and have a look at those. All of our graduates for the entrepreneur program are actually at the top, so they should be the first ones as you come up. I'd really love to thank Ken and Barbara for their time today. That was such fun, and there was so many questions that we couldn't get to, but we do have another live, I believe, on Monday, and I will create a support thread in the Skincare Entrepreneur Mastermind, so you can add more of your questions on there, and maybe we'll answer a few that we didn't have time to on Monday with Eliza and Ken. Is it yourself on Monday? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. I haven't planned that far.
I can't remember. But I know that the lovely Eliza will be with me, one of our grading tutors. But thank you everyone for joining us. It has been great, and it's Friday night, so whatever you're doing, well, it's Friday night for me and Ken, so whatever you're doing, have a lovely evening, and thank you all for joining us so much.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.